I should do a little update now because there's a lot of news going on. It's hard here because of the wind, so I'm looking for a dead spot, a dry where there's no wind. The reason I think this is an important update, I Googled the news throughout the day. And it's interesting because not only CNN and Fox and others, none of them had the top story as the Russian, Syrian, United States risk of conflict. And if there should be any top story, that should be it. So I Googled breaking news. NBC News, of course, had that rightfully as the top story. And it's a sign of the times, as hopefully I get a chance. Hopefully I'll get a chance to talk about it right now. Because we're consumed with the topless protester at the Bill Cosby thing. We're consumed with maybe the Republicans and Lindsey Graham are going to produce something to protect Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, from... Okay, all of those things are somewhat news. Paul Ryan is not going to run again. Why is the top news in Russia right now, throughout last night? It's not a bluff, but the state-run media, not a bluff, is telling their citizens, preparing them to hunker down. They're trying to not get them to panic and to preparing them for the possibility of what Russia is referring to as the Great War, which would be World War III. Now, our media, in all that's been going on, it's interesting because you have many that have said, why is Mr. Trump so soft on Russia? The same media that says that is also saying, is it possible that Trump would start a war? I would just simply say, the top story right now for this day is Russia is preparing to have a real world war with us. And it's not a joke, and it's not a one-time thing. And the thing that amazes me is that it's based on the only other terrible war that we had in recent history. It's based on the exact same questionable thing. Meaning, if I went into somebody's home and I felt that they were a threat to me and they poisoned my kids or had the capability to poison my kids, and then I said, I really believe that these people are a threat, this group or whatever, and then I went in and killed them, and then over time I would realize I was wrong. What you would have then with a person or a family would be a serious reflection on why that occurred, who might have manipulated John to think that somebody had poison in their home and he did that. Now, on a world scale, that's what happened in Iraq. Meaning, that war was based not on false intelligence about nuclear bombs, it was based on false intelligence of what we refer to as weapons of mass destruction, primarily chemical agents. And after the Western world realized that that was a mistake where many people died needlessly, we have not reflected in the West about, man, we should have thought about that over these last so many years. We haven't. We've just thought, oh well, let's go to the next top story that's entertainment driven. And because we didn't really seriously think about that and reflect on that, we are possibly on the verge of a real great war based on the same thing, not on something else. that did Mr. Assad, Bashar Assad of Syria, did he use chemical weapons, chemical gas poisoning, chlorine poisoning? Did he use it on the people in this particular city? Now, it's questionable because of a lot of other reasons, but most of all it should be questionable because that was the last mistake the Western world made about the last most mistaken war in recent memory. And we're on the verge of that again. And the media goes from, why is Trump so soft? Andrea Mitchell and others, we must do things. The same media, the same political bias is saying, oh, could it be he's doing this to... and the serious question is, are we on the verge of a real war? Russia, I don't think, is bluffing that if we strike Syria and we hit these bases, which it seems as if we're on the verge of doing, and we kill particular Russians, this is my friend back there, Jeremy, JW in China. If we kill civilians, or we kill Russian military people, Russia has told us they're going to count that as a direct attack, where they're going to not only shoot down missiles, but they're going to target the ships, the destroyers, and other things that launched them. And so that should be top news, because some are still proclaiming, whether it's a Lindsey Graham or anybody else, that yeah, it's worth the possibility of World War III based on intelligence that we don't know for sure whether Mr. Assad did what he claimed to have done. Second, we have a tendency to say there are particular weapons that the whole globe agrees are despicable weapons. Nobody's for gassing, torturing, or any of that. But then we have the same mindset in the Western world, whether it's a movie called Sniper, which glorifies a particular method of killing, and there were actual questions. The famous movie Sniper about one of our military guys that was a sniper. There were questions whether or not he did some things that were wrong. But we had a tendency to glorify certain types of killing and to say this is permitted. But a particular type, now I'm not for chemical weapons, I'm not for any weapons, but I would just simply ask, Russia is at the verge for a whole lot of things, not just for anything recent. They're at the verge to have a real war with the US, meaning it'll be a global war. And we should honestly be asking ourselves in this country, what are the benefits at this stage to risk that? Particularly if we're wrong. The odds on Mr. Assad having used chemical poison gas, I'd say are higher than 50% that he would not have done that. And there's questions, even in other analysts around the world, whether or not the recent things that we have blamed on Russia, even the poisoning of the spies, the former Russian spies living in Britain, there's real questions whether or not we are being manipulated. So the top news today should be, it's possible. The odds are closer right now today than ever before that we're on the verge of a real World War III. Therefore, the Cosby topless protester or the things going on politically in this country, that should be at the bottom of the news. And the top news should be where we should ask serious questions whether or not it's justified at this stage, at this point, to possibly risk the Great War. That's the top news. And I think a lot of this is a sign of the times. You know, Jesus, it's interesting because I do read Christian sites and all. Some of the things, you know, I've read recently but Jesus rebuked the people of his day because they didn't know the signs of the times. They couldn't see where they were at as a people and as a society. So I would say, yeah, I have an old post maybe a few years ago Russia, the U.S., World War III, it's on my various sides. But I tried to explain deeply some of the issues. And we have not, and the media has not informed the public really about any of this. And it's sad that I Googled, and I had to go to NBC News. That's the top story today. Are we on the verge of a great war? And Russia is not bluffing. And I'm not saying we should step down in case a particular line was crossed, but we should look at the cost. If the consequence and the cost is bravado by the West, which leads to the death of many, many more people, then you look at the proper response. Okay? That's the update.